I was in my mid-20s and I had all the external measures of success. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a high-paying job. I had a sports car. I had the body of my dreams. I was competing in a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be in. Health, wealth, and love. It seemed like I had all of them. But I was very insecure. I lacked confidence. I had no purpose. I had no direction. I was depressed. I was anxious. My girlfriend at the time ended up leaving me. And when she left, I convinced myself that I just hadn't made enough money yet. I fell into that trap of,
oh no.
there's some work I could probably do on me, but I think if I just go make more money, then I'll be better.
I'd like to welcome to the show, Kelvin Palmieri. Welcome.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm excited to chat. You and I had the pleasure of meeting behind the scenes a while ago. I love your energy. I'm excited to see where we go today.
Oh, yeah, me too, man. You're like always on point and your energy is so ignited. So tell me, what ignites your energy on a daily basis to do what you've been doing for so long now?
Yeah, it's always, that's a challenging question because I think it's easy to lose sight of what your reality has become when your reality has been the way it's been for long enough. I think it's honestly the fact that I get to do what I love. I remember when this was a dream. It was a dream for me to be able to be a quote unquote professional podcaster. And anytime I lose sight of that, I try to reflect and say, Kev, yeah, today might be hard and you might be busy and you might be overwhelmed, but you do know the opposite of that is what you did not want. So do not ever forget how blessed you are to have this opportunity. I would say that's probably the thing that ignites me the most.
Nice. And I'm there with you, man, because this is not easy. Sometimes you're all nervous and, things happen throughout the day or whatever, or the week, and you're like, ah, shit, if this comes out great. But you know what? It always does. It always does. I realize that even like for myself, when I get a little nervous before the podcast, it's just that I'm excited. And then once I get in the podcast, boom, it's like I come in with my fearless goddess energy and I just go with it. And it just feels so great.
Well, isn't that living? Isn't that for me? I don't really get nervous before podcasts anymore. I do occasionally. It depends on what type of place I'm in. But when I'm speaking on stage, I still get very, very, very nervous. And there's always this moment when you're walking up or you're behind the curtain or whatever it is, where now I tell myself, this is what living feels like. This is what it feels like to be alive. I am outside of my comfort zone. And I think the opposite of that is just being comfortable and probably being bored. So I think the opposite is probably not where we want to live anyway.
Exactly. And you know what? I will remember that when I go on stage in the future, because that's definitely one thing that I would love to do eventually and overcome that fear, because I've always had that fear of stage fright.
Yeah.
And I want to overcome that. So I know I'm doing it with the podcast. But it's a little different, right? When you go on stage.
It's definitely different, but I find that it helps. So a couple months ago, I don't even know when, no, it was like 5 or 6 months ago at this point, I went to Toronto to give a speech with one of my mentors, and I was the least nervous I've ever been for a speech. But then I did a presentation with him again virtually, and it was so much different. I am very comfortable here. I am not as comfortable in person, but I just have so many more reps here. So I think it's wherever you practice the most, you're probably going to feel the most competent. But in the beginning, you might not feel competent anywhere. So it's kind of, it's always that. You're always going to be uncomfortable to some degree.
Of course. And that's fine. That's good. That's what life is about, right?
100%.
Get it out of that comfort zone area.
100%.
Cool. So what inspired you to start the Next Level University?
I was in my mid-20s and I had all the external measures of success. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a high-paying job. I had a sports car. I had the body of my dreams. I was competing in a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be in. Health, wealth, and love. It seemed like I had all of them. But I was very insecure. I lacked confidence. I had no purpose. I had no direction. I was anxious. My girlfriend at the time ended up leaving me. And when she left, I convinced myself that I just hadn't made enough money yet. I fell into that trap of,
oh, no.
Yeah, there's some work I could probably do on me, but I think if I just go make more money, then I'll be better. So the next year, I grinded my face off, and my job at the time required a lot of travel because we worked in other states and on government contracts. So I ended up spending 10 months living on the road that
Wow.
year. Got to the end of the year. I opened up my final pay stub, and I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree.
Nice.
And that was the goal. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be the most confident ever. And I remember when I opened up that final pay stub, I didn't feel any different. There was no more confidence. There was no more self-worth. I was still insecure. I realized that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously, especially that year. I just was going through the motions. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So
Yeah.
in 2017, the podcast, before it was Next Level University, it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so I started in 2017. I just wanted to have cool conversations with cool people to help me raise my self-awareness, because I think a lot of the pain that I've suffered in my life is due to low self-awareness. So it started there. The next year, I ended up having some mental health issues, and I had a contemplation of suicide a couple times, and I ended up leaving my job to do this full time in 2018. And then it was, okay, how do we find a way to make this sustainable? But it didn't start that way. I think a lot of people have the misconception that I started this so I could make money and become wealthy and all that. That wasn't the thing. I just wanted to have cool conversations with cool people. And then eventually I ran out of money. So I had to figure out a way to make money if I wanted to keep doing this. And that kind of evolved into a business that we have today.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know, it's funny because I do resonate with you in that area, especially with the depression and all that stuff. And, you know, I went through my own mental health for years, and, you know, I got very sick a few years ago, and my throat chakra was shut. I couldn't speak. You know, I was losing my memory with the different things that I was going through. And then finally I decided, you know what, 2023, I'm going to focus on my health, you know, and I started to do that. And as I started to heal myself, I started realizing how my mind started getting, you know, like more clarity. I was able to start speaking more. And then by this year, March, I had a friend of mine that said, you need to get on the podcast. You need to do it. You have such an amazing story. I know you love to connect with people, and that's going to help you so much with everything, with the depression, with everything. And I was just so scared, man.
Yeah.
I was really, really scared. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go for it. And I started with her, the podcast. And then, like, I think it was a few episodes in, I hear my spirit guides telling me, it's time for you to let go of your training wheels and go on your own. And I was like, shit, okay, let's do it. So that's how it started also for me, you know, kind of like, you know, to kind of gain that confidence, because I had lost all my confidence. I didn't know who I was. It was crazy. So I could definitely resonate with you on that. That's not easy, man.
No,
it takes courage.
It's brutal. It's challenging. But I think it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that some people right now watching or listening have a dream that they want to accomplish that does not seem at all realistic. Same here. Who becomes a full-time podcaster? Like, that is such a rare thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you can chase that, and if you can feel like you're making meaningful progress towards something that is truly meaningful to you, I think that's where so much fulfillment is.
Yeah, that is true.
Right? I used to believe that success was money. Success is money, nice things, cars.
Yeah. That's how we were programmed. Yeah, we were programmed to think that money's everything. And if you don't have money and you're not driving a nice car and you're not wearing nice clothes, because, you know, I was raised in Miami, so that was the thing, you know, and for years I was caught into that, you know, and I'm like, who the hell am I? By the time I turned 39, I'm like, okay, get me the hell out of Florida. I don't know who the hell I am, you know? So yeah, I get it, man. Like, everything's always been about money. And it's funny because when I started the podcast, thank God I have a beautiful husband that just supports me. And I could do this without having to, you know, get a job. You know, I still do my Airbnb part-time. Yep. But it's beautiful because I have a great support system to be able to do this and share other people's story as well as mine at the same time, which is beautiful. Yep. It's a good way of, you know, I think allowing for our mental health to be healthier.
Yes.
It helps with that.
And you're going to get further doing something that's based in purpose.
Yes, and not money.
Yeah. I think the strategy is important.
No, yes, absolutely.
Right? I used to think if you love something and you do it long enough, you'll make money doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the better you are at strategy and the better you are at understanding how business works, the more sustainable it gets. So I've been on the polarities, Jacqueline, of this. For a long time, it was grind your face off, do nothing but work, and you'll be successful. Then it was law of attraction, and if it's meant to be, it'll be, and divine timing and all that stuff.
Right.
And then over time, I started to realize that I think a lot of that it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
I like podcasting. I'm most likely going to do more episodes than most people. I just like it. I like it more than most people. I'll do 30 episodes a week. I don't care. I like it. I enjoy it very, very much. So my grind for podcasting is more aligned than somebody else's.
Right.
Where if you said to me, you have to write 500 pages of a book this week, I would tell you, get lost. No way.
Yeah, no, leave it up to AI.
Yeah, that would suck.
I know for that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But I think there's just so much behind purpose. When you have and you feel like you are purpose driven in what you are doing, I'm not saying all the stars are going to align immediately, but I do think you'll stick around for longer than most people because you're getting fulfillment. And I think fulfillment is a fuel that burns slow and long, where money and motivation, it burns hot, but it burns very fast. And purpose and motivation,
and it doesn't last very long.
No,
it really doesn't. And I've noticed that because, again, the programming, I was used to being like, okay, how much money can I make? Every time I had an opportunity come up, it was like, okay, how can I make money doing this? Or, it was always that business mentality. And then as I went through my spiritual journey and my awakening and consciousness and all that, I realized, wait a second, money's a great energy. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I have a great relationship with it now, and it's very different, but it's not everything. Like, I'm not focused on the money. I'm focused on me really having a great time doing what I'm doing. And, I tell my husband, I'm like, the money will come. I'm not worried. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm learning. And, eventually the money's going to come in. And I know that. Like, I know it inside of me. And he looks at me like, okay, all right, and there's no doubt about it. And I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's okay, because it's all part of the process, and I want to enjoy the whole experience of it. And I know you've already gone through that.
I've been through it. And when you love what you're doing, it makes everything a little bit easier, even when it's hard. That's I don't think no longer do I believe if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I don't think so, because I love what I do, but there's still things I must do that I don't love. It just, it kind of is the way it's set up. But some days are really, really hard, but they're a little bit easier because I love what I do. And I think that's just, if I could,
that's the important part.
Yeah, I think it's a nugget that I wish I had earlier on. It's, what if you doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing is not actually easier? It's just as hard, but since you love it so much, it seems a little bit easier. If somebody said that to me, I would say, interesting. So it's not supposed to be easy. No. It's gonna be hard, but your version of hard is different because you like it. That would have made, maybe it would have made sense to me. Who knows? I might have just ignored it.
Yeah, exactly. You enjoy it more, when you look at it in that way. Life is different. So how do you help individuals identify their next level in life?
Yeah, I mean, it usually starts with understanding what they want their next level to look like. We're very weird where for every person I have helped get to the next level, I have dissuaded somebody else from getting to the next level that they think they want to get to because they don't actually want to get there. And I don't mean that from a negative, they can't get there. I had a conversation with a young man one time who said, I want to do what you guys are doing, but bigger. And I said, okay, I don't know. I know what it took to get here. I don't know what it's going to take to get to bigger. I don't know what that means, right?
Right.
And I said, well, what do you value as a human being? Do you value spending time with your family? Do you value picking the kids up off the bus? Do you want to be at all their recitals, their sporting events, all that stuff? And he said, oh yeah, those are the priorities. I said, then don't do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard for you to do both of those. I decided not to have children for a reason.
Okay.
The reason I'm not having children is because I know this won't be able to be the main thing. I would have to spend more time with family. Not that I don't love my family, but I want to do this. So what we're ultimately doing with people is we're helping people get clarity of what they actually want based on who they are, not what they want based on what they think they should want, based on what other people think they should want, based on who they think they are. We're ultimately helping people gain self-awareness to who they are so they can be clear on where they're shooting the goals. And then we help them strategize around those goals when it comes to life, love, health and wealth. That's the ultimate thing is I don't want you to be wealthy and single if you value relationships. I don't
Yeah.
want you to be in the deepest, most love you've ever been in, but you let your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health go, because that's not sustainable. I
Right.
want our community to be able to have all of them, but it's probably at least 3 times as hard because you're always working on something, and then you got to make sure you don't drop this ball and you're juggling this. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's ultimately what it is that we do. It's usually starting with the self-awareness piece. It's very hard to get to the next level if you don't know where you currently are, why you are there, and then what does the next level actually mean for you? Are you doing it for the result, which is going to tank your lifestyle? Are
Yeah.
you doing it to please other people? I think so much of it is self-awareness.
And that's beautiful that you actually were able to come up with all that and actually have tools and techniques for people to actually become aware. Because all of us, we're walking in this world, the majority of us, like a zombie, like a ghost. Like we don't even know what the hell we want or who we are. And, we go through life like based on what society wants from us, either the government or the school system or whatever. And that's crazy because that creates so much uncertainty in our lives, and I struggle with mental health because I never knew the hell I was. I was always trying to be somebody else. I was always trying to figure out, who should I be? And that caused a lot of, mental health. And then I got sick and all that. And, thankfully, I found things that I've loved throughout those journeys, like, with the Airbnb, staging houses, rehabbing them. That was a lot of fun, but I was not mentally healthy when I was doing all that. So I became very ill. And now I've noticed that with the podcast, it's like I love the fact that I get nervous because I know inside of me that it kind of tells me this is where you need to be. This is something that you love doing. And if you didn't get nervous, that means that you're really not serious about it. That's kind of like what I've told myself. And it makes sense to me. It might not make sense to a lot of people. The nervous part, they might just say, oh shit, I'm scared, I'm not doing it. But for me, it was like, no, I love that challenge. I love that feeling because the moment that the recording goes on, I'm just, I'm not scared anymore. It's like now I'm connecting to, like, let's say yourself, we're here, we're having a great time now, and I'm just focused on this and nothing else matters in this time. So I love that,
Well, you can't,
it's good.
and you can't really mess up. The other thing too is you can't really mess up a conversation. It's like, this is just a conversation and
Yeah.
nobody knows what you were going to say. So if you can't really mess it up, maybe for your standards, you'll say, I really wish I went in this direction, but nobody else knows where you're going to go. So it doesn't really matter. That's always really helped me when I'm speaking. Yeah. I went to a wedding recently and I was sitting at the table with the maid of honor and she was giving a speech. And I said, are you nervous? And she said, I am so nervous. And I said, let me just give you a little advice. If you want it, awesome. If you don't, throw it in the garbage. Nobody knows what you're going to say. Nobody has any clue. Nobody can see what's on this piece of paper. Speak from the heart. Use this as a guide. If you mess up, don't worry. You're the only person that's going to know.
Exactly.
That's always helped me. So I'll pass that on.
That is very true. Yeah, thank you for that.
You're
and It's
welcome.
funny because when I first was thinking about the podcast, I was already listening to like so many different podcasters, Emilio Ortiz and Alex Ferrari and Edward E. Grant, like all these amazing people that are doing wonderful things for humanity. And I'm just looking and I'm observing, and I'm talking about, I don't know, hundreds of videos later, thousands of videos. I don't even know how many by now. And then I'm like, wait a second, this is not that hard. Everybody has their own style. There's no wrong or right when you're doing this. You're just having a conversation. So why not? You know what I mean? And then I was like, I could do this shit. I really can. And I started it. And it's like, I always pick up little things from people. And I love that because I can, pick up, let's say, certain things from you. And then I flip it and I turn it into me, into my essence, my flavor, if you want to call it like that. So, it's kind of cool. Podcasting is like just another world, man. This is so much fun. I can't say it enough. I'm having such a great time doing this, really.
Well, same. If you want to talk to somebody about podcasting and how much they love it, you pick the right guy because, again, it's very weird. It's strange to me that I get to do this every day. I'm very, very grateful. And the hard yet awesome thing is you're going to learn more about yourself than anything else. I I always feel guilty because I've learned more from our podcast than any listener possibly could have, because
Yeah.
before the episode, we're figuring out what we're going to do. After the episode, we're masterminding. I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning so I can make sure I add value. So yeah, I feel guilty. I feel like selfishly I get to learn more than anybody else, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is true. And I feel the same way sometimes, because now I've gone from like reading maybe 2 or 3 books in my entire life to the last 2 years, I just realized I read like 20 books.
Nice.
And I'm like, holy crap, and then the podcast and all that, all the YouTube channels and everything. And I'm like, I sometimes feel bad that a lot of people don't have the opportunity that I have as yourself to really dig deep and research and really, understand what's happening, what's going on out there, and just kind of learn different things. I'm so open to so many topics, so many different things, from spirituality to mental health to philosophy to sacred geometry, quantum physics. And like, I never thought that I would even think of even wanting to read or know about these things a year ago, or even 6 months ago. And I'm like, holy shit, I love all this. Where was I in this life? Where was I living? Because shit, I didn't know that I was really, really fascinated about all these things, anything like this. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I know that, in life we have, and I hate to say failures, but I know sometimes we face failures, and how do you overcome them? Because I know, not everything's always perfect. We want it to be, but we always come across, certain things in life. So have you ever had like a certain failure or something that you've overcome that you could maybe
Never,
give the
Jacqueline.
audience?
I'm perfect. I've never made a single mistake ever. I can't add any value. Yeah. So many. I am just now, I'm going to be very honest and very, very transparent. I am just now getting to the place where it actually resonates when people say lessons come from losses.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds really sexy, and I know maybe that's what we're all aspiring for, is when you make a mistake, when you have a failure, yes, you look at the failure, you figure out what went wrong, and then you take the lessons away and you try to avoid that. It's taken me 7 years to get to that point. Man, one of the first potential opportunities I had to work with a client, I think it was like 2019, 2020. I was broke. I had $0. I needed money badly, and somebody wanted help with their podcast. And I said, sure, we can do whatever it is you're looking for, blah, blah, blah. It's $1,500 a month, what you're looking for. Are you in or are you out? And for context, this person was one of our mentors. They had a net worth of many $million. They had the money. The money was not an issue. And they reached back out and said, what about $1,000 a month? I'll pay you 3 months up front, and I'll promote you on our podcast. And I said, nah, dude, $1,500 or nothing. That is the price.
Boy.
And he never responded to me. So I needed that money badly. And you want to talk about a salt in the wound moment. Not only was I broke, not only had I already imagined what it would be like to get this client, I never heard from him again. And I think as a mentor, he was trying to teach me a lesson, which I'm grateful for now. But yeah, that's still something my business partner and I talk about to this day, 5 years later. And that is one of the biggest, that was one of the earliest quote unquote failures that I had. Eventually, I was able to sift through the rubble and figure out, okay, I got entitled. Yeah, I got a little arrogant. I got a little entitled. I was so focused on the short term that I wasn't focused on the long-term opportunities. There's a lot of lessons in there. So now I'm able to at least sift through. But my initial reaction when I have a failure or make a mistake is still, I feel bad. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel smart enough. I question whether or not I'm actually going to be successful. And then I try to take a step back and say, Kev, this, just like one thing is not going to make you successful, one thing is also not going to make you a quote unquote failure. It's not, this is just one thing. Emotionally, it feels really bad. But logically, what should we do? We should probably take a minute, reflect, take the lessons, and then get back to work. Because that's what we're going to do anyway. So that's my relationship now, but it still is not natural to me. I'm not a natural make a mistake and then say, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. Here are all the lessons. I'm back to the races. It takes me a little bit of time to get back.
And that's part of your human experience in life.
Yes.
Not everything will, you cannot take all the failures and be like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Because sometimes we have to sit with that for a little bit and with that feeling and go internal and say, well, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
And it's hard because our ego says you're a failure and you should stop doing this and you're not good enough. And then you go down that rabbit hole and it sucks, and I get it. Right there, that was God's source universe saying, here, you have this money, you have this client, and your ego saying, no, screw it.
Yeah.
I want $1,500.
Yeah.
And it sucks. Now, did you ever get to talk to that mentor again and
Nope.
tell him how you learned the lesson and all that?
Still have not talked to him. He's still.
Have you tried to contact him?
Yeah, I haven't tried in a few years. I think maybe
Okay.
that's something I could do to energetically close the loop, is just send him a message and say, hey, I learned a lot from that. I'm sure you were probably frustrated with me, and I appreciate the fact that you taught me the lesson that I've learned and I've been able to practice however many times. So I haven't talked to him, but that is something that I can definitely do.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted.
There you go. So what core values drives the content that you create for Next Level University?
One for me is always relatability. When I was getting into self-improvement, I could tell that the people I was listening to didn't understand what it was like to be me. I am someone who doesn't naturally have a ton of self-belief. So I would hear content, it would just say, don't care what people think. Believe in yourself more. Thank you. Thank you. That's great advice. That's what I'm trying to do. Can you teach me how to do it? No,
Yeah.
just fear failure less. No, that's not a good piece of advice. So yeah, one thing I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to stay relatable in terms of the way I deliver the message, because I want to resonate with people. I want people to actually find value and be able to practice it. So that's one thing. Humility is a big one, right? It's I wouldn't be here without our community. I wouldn't be here without our team. Yes, you get to see me here in front of the scenes, but there are close to dozens of people at this point behind the scenes that make this possible. So that's super important. That's a very, very important core value for us, is just community and in team in general. Honesty. I do not want to be the guy who lies about how we got here. I don't want to be the guy who lies about how hard it'll be, how easy it'll be. I don't want to be the guy that lies, because I think there's already too much of that. And I don't want to perpetuate that. So honesty is a really, really big one. And then reliability is too. If I'm going to tell people that they can get a little bit better every single day, I better be leading the charge on that, and I better be walking the talk. And that's one of the reasons we do an episode every day. If I'm going to tell you can get a little bit better, I better be available to you to help you get a little bit better. So the reliability and the consistency is something that we practice a lot behind the scenes, but that's also a piece of our brand, and it's a deep core value of ours as well.
So yeah, that plays a huge role with integrity, and it's funny because that's something that I've been now relearning again, because I had to kind of like deprogram myself to reprogram myself to who I wanted to be, and I realized that integrity plays a huge role in everything you do with your life. And from the first time we talked, I just connected with you. I even said to you, I think we're like soul brothers or something, because we just kind of connected. But you gave me some pieces of advices for my podcast, with like creating a Facebook community, which I did right away. It was funny because as soon as you say something to me, I'm like, here I go. So I created it, and it's growing little by little. I already have about 21 people in there. And I put in stuff, little content, little things, kind of keep them inspired. And I'm trying to create the community and getting the ideas. And I get them from probably you and other people, because that's how I learn. I can't sit there and read, let's say a book or something that says this is how you do it. I'm visual. I just got to see it done, and then I could do it. And then whatever's behind the scenes, then I'll kind of either try to figure out, or I'll go straight to the source that has been doing it for a long time, like like yourself. Yeah. So
I would bet on you. Again, I've learned a lot over the last 7 years. A lot about myself. Some things I didn't want to learn. Other things that are super awesome.
Right.
The people that I have seen win, whatever win means, are the people that go from awareness to implementation very quickly. That is a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah.
To your point, there's a lot of people they are voracious readers, and they just read and read and read and read and read. But unfortunately, those books don't ever get put into practice.
Yeah.
There's also some people who are really good action takers, but they don't know what actions to take because awareness is their problem. That was me. I am very similar to you. If you tell me to do something, I will go do it. I'll just, cool, awesome. I work really well with coaches because they just tell me what to do. Cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do. That was my issue. So the faster you can close the awareness implementation gap, the more likely you are to make meaningful progress, because you're taking knowledge and you're putting it into practice, and then you're getting results, which then increases your knowledge, which increases your ability to put it into practice, and then it becomes this beautiful cycle. The opposite of that is you don't try something because you don't know, you don't get any results, you don't get any knowledge, you don't get any proof, and then you get stuck in this cycle of, well, I'm just not going to do it. So that was a long-winded way of complimenting you on your ability to take action, and you're very welcome. It's definitely an attribute of somebody who walks their talk, for sure.
Yeah. And it's, it hasn't been easy, Kevin, because I've done Tony Robbins events. Like, we started maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we went to the first UPW in Florida, and it was amazing, and I had a great time. And then we did, we bought the package deals. They had like 5 different other courses, virtual events. And, it's like you listen to all these things, and then it's very hard sometimes to implement them, because there's so much information in such a little amount of time. And then you kind of implement them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then it kind of like disappears. And then you're like, wait a second, why are all these people like that were, let's say, in our group advancing, and I'm still here? Like, what happened, And then I finally said, wait a second, it has to do with implementing what you learn. It's not just reading a book or taking a course or whatever. If you don't implement it, you're so right. You're like lost, or you're not going to do anything with it. So implementation, I've realized, has a lot to do with it. And it actually started with my spiritual journey, because I was, doing all my shadow work. I was doing so many things. And then I'm like, well, I want to implement how to really, let's say, connect, to my higher self and all that stuff. And then I was like, wait a second, I have to implement the things that I'm learning. And how do I do that? The question is always, how do I do that? And then I kind of go a little lost in your head, and you're like, well, I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But it's funny, because the moment you say, well, I don't know what that looks like, show me, then, your spirit guides are like, oh, here you go. And they'll show me like a book or a YouTube channel or something. And I'm like, thank you. So now it's the awareness, I'm more aware now. So I'm starting to understand it, how all this works. I still have a long way.
Of course.
I'm nowhere near where you're at. And
well, I still have a long way too. It's not, that's the thing, is this is the weird thing. The gap between what I know and what I need to know might be bigger than the gap between what you know and what you need to know. It just seems like I'm further along because I've been doing it for longer. It's this weird thing where I might know a lot, but I might not know nearly enough for what I need to know in order to get to where I need to get to. The other thing that's super important is the ability to take messy action. That's ultimately what you're saying, is when you don't know how to do it, you just show up and you just start painting and see what happens. Like, I want to paint a giraffe. I know a giraffe has these colors and it has a long neck. Let me see what I can do. I'll make a long neck here. Messy action is something that a lot of people struggle with. If you struggle with perfectionism, it's really hard to say, let me just try this and see what happens. I did a coaching call with someone last night, and they had a list of things. I said, all right, we're going to change this. We're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And it was all about his podcast. And he said, yeah, I'm in the stage, Kev, of messy action. It's just, I'm just throwing stuff out there, and just done is better than perfect. And I said, I completely agree. But now that it's done and it's out there, now we can focus on improving it. So that's a whole other thing. Messy action makes it kind of look like you're losing, because somebody might swing by and say, oh my God, you only have 20 people in your Facebook group. That Facebook group didn't exist 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Like, huge progress. It just, somebody who's just driving by might see the building that isn't painted yet and assume it's an abandoned building when it's not. It's just in renovation.
Yeah. And that's funny, because I've been noticing that with like the editing portion of it, like it's fun, and I try different things. And then I guess that's what you call it, messy action.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'll try this and I'll try that and I'll see something on somebody else's podcast. And I'm like, well, let me see if I could do this or something similar to get to that. And, but it's fun, it's messy, it's fun. And I'm like, you know what? Let's see what sticks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to overthink it. I've always been very OCD, a perfectionist. Everything had to be like super perfect. I went through that with the Airbnb. Like everything had to be perfect. My cleaners will come in and if they didn't put something back where, it's supposed to go, I was having a fit. I was like, are you serious? Like, come on, it's common sense. And they were like, not to us. And I was like, shit. But it's part of, you wanting things perfect. And that is not good. I'm not saying that you don't want to have good stuff, tasty stuff, really, great looking podcast, things in your editing and stuff. But it's okay to be messy at the beginning. It's okay to have fun with it. And I'm realizing that now because that's been one of my biggest challenges because I am by nature a perfectionist. I am. Yeah. And I realize that. But this is my training wheels to just be messy.
You're never, that's the heart. I mean, it's hyperlogical. You're never going to be perfect. Nothing is ever. There is no such thing.
Exactly.
Even the finest restaurants in the world where you have to pay thousands of dollars for a seat, they make mistakes. They just, they're more rare. They just make mistakes rarer and it's rarer and rarer and rarer. But again, that's a very logical way to look at it. That's not something I ever really had because I don't think I'm good enough anyway. So it's like, I'd rather just get it out there and get feedback because I assume it's going to go horribly wrong anyway. So let me just take messy action.
Yeah.
There's an upside to messy action and there's a downside, right? And there's an upside to perfectionism. Airbnb is going to have a 4.9 rating and people are going to say it's the cleanest Airbnb and it smelled amazing and the towels were fresh, but you might be a little bit more stressed behind the scenes.
Yeah. You just described my Airbnb.
I would assume that, right? Based on my interactions with you, I can imagine what it looks like because the way you show up in the world is a representation of the way you make the world around you. And I've spent enough time with you.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's funny because when I first decided that I wanted to work for myself and not anybody else, and then, the Airbnb and all that came up, I just, a part of me, because I guess, again, my mental health and all that, I just want to create an environment, where people could get away from everyday life, because life is chaotic as it is. And, when I chose this house, it's funny because I couldn't find any property that I really wanted. And, this house sits in the mountain on the side of the mountain and it's hidden away in the woods. And that's exactly what I wanted. And I remember going, almost 2 months looking for property with the realtor. And finally, one day I said, you know what, God, source, I just want a house that sits on the side of the mountain, hidden away in the woods where people could just get away from everything, right? And a week later, I found the house. It was the craziest shit. You know what I mean? But, that's what I wanted to create for other people. That was my mission for them to be able to have an amazing time here. And it was, just, it's been successful. Yeah. It's been great. It was fun to create that for someone else,
I can imagine. Yeah. I've stayed in many Airbnbs in my day, and I'm sure, judging by the sounds of it, it sounds wonderful.
Dude, and I had no confidence. I don't even know how the hell I did any of this because I didn't believe in myself at all. During that time, that was one of the worst times in my life because we had just gotten out of a car accident that nearly killed us. And it was horrible. I mean, this was a few months right after the accident. My husband's recovering from surgery. We had just lost our dog too in that accident. So there was a lot of trauma. Yeah. So I think we talked about this in the pre-podcast meeting, like I pour everything into the business, into creating, and it was fantastic. But I look back now, I'm like, Jesus was literally there with me or something because I didn't know how I was going to do it, with no confidence, with nothing, but I had confidence somehow for that.
Yeah, that's the $1 billion question, right?
Dude, I don't know. I felt like I was guided or something.
You probably were. I think a piece of it is if somebody's going to take a new action, they need 3 things. They need to know it is humanly possible. So is it humanly possible to make an Airbnb? Yes, right? There's, I don't know, thousands, maybe millions of people done it. I don't know how many people done it. Is it personally possible? Yeah, we don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I think the big one that is underutilized and underfocused on is, will it be worth it? I think if you believe it will be worth it, you can work through not knowing how you're going to do it.
Good.
I'm convinced of that because
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
think any of this was possible. My thought was, if I could do this long enough and I could do this forever, it would be worth it. That is what kept me afloat. And sometimes it was just that. I was just floating, just trying to get by. So, I mean, that's the thing that jumps off the page to me when you say that, is if you had a deep, meaningful belief that it would be worth it,
Yeah.
maybe that was a piece of the guidance that you felt that you couldn't recognize at that point.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that, because I think sometimes we get guided and we don't even know why, and then years later we're like, that's why. So,
Yeah.
you know, I guess it was something that I needed for my mental health in that time, to keep me afloat, you know, and not trying to kill myself, which I tried so many times, because we could relate on that too. You know, life sucked, and why am I here, and why don't I just get the hell out of here, because, you know, nobody gives a shit, you know, type of deal. You know, we've all struggled, I think, with some portion or some sort of mental health, whatever that looks like for the individual person. Now, Kevin, how do you balance the ambition with well-being, and well-being? Yeah.
I honestly am probably not the guy to answer that, because I don't all the time. I would say I'm the most holistic in terms of life, love, health, and wealth. I'm the most balanced I'd say I've ever been, honestly. But it's a juggling act, really, is what it is. Right now, I'm with you. And me being with you means I cannot be with my wife. My wife is not here. She's not in the studio with me. I'm doing this and I'm doing nothing else. For me now, it's more about design than anything. So every day I essentially get up at 6. I'm not telling you have to get up early. I like 6. I enjoy getting up early. I'm not saying nobody has to do that if you don't want to.
Right.
From 6 till 8, I'm doing back office stuff, where I'm focused on responding to clients and doing the back office stuff that needs to get done. Then I go to the gym. That's a pillar for me. If I'm in the gym, my mental health is always better. That's a huge thing. And then essentially from 10 till 6, I'm doing stuff like this. So I'm on camera, I'm doing coaching calls, I'm on podcasts, I'm doing speeches, I'm doing team calls. And then usually latest 7 at this point, which I'm grateful for, I am spending time with my wife. So 7 to 10, I get to spend with my wife every day, which is awesome. And then we're in bed at 10, pretty much every night, if we even make it that far. I think we went to bed at like 9:15 last night. So it's mostly about design now, where in the beginning it was mayhem. I was getting 4 hours of sleep. I was working 18-hour days. It was different. It was different. Do I still work 18-hour days? Yes, it happens. It just sometimes I get 4 hours of sleep. It depends, but it's way less than it used to be. So I think it's hard because I think I'm privileged in the fact that I get to make my own schedule. So it's easier for me to prioritize, but you have to sit down and really admit to yourself what's important to you. Because I used to think getting 4 hours of sleep was super cool.
Yeah.
Now I realize it is wildly detrimental to my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. It's not good.
Oh, yeah.
So as my priorities have shifted, my focus on those things has shifted too. So that's how I do it. And I also try to be very honest about the fact that I'm not going to be able to do some of the things that I want to do.
That's true.
There's only 24 hours in a day. I want to go to the gym, so that's an hour and a half that I can't spend somewhere else. I need some R&R. I need to build a business. So I think the simplest answer would be, it is a never-ending, evolving juggling act, where as you get better at juggling, you understand how to keep more balls in the air. And when you drop one, it doesn't hit the ground and explode. You catch it before it gets there. But the goal is whatever one is lowest. So let's say right now the business is not doing well. I need to put more time into there. I get a pull from health and I get a pull from relationships a little bit. Like, let me pull an hour from here and an hour from here a day. All right, cool. Then as that gets higher, I can go back and refill the other buckets. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, because, especially with our relationships with our spouses, we have to be mindful of that, because we get so caught up in creating and doing the things that we love.
Yeah.
And they probably do the same. And then, next thing you know, you're not really spending time with each other. And that could take a toll in the relationship. So, it's kind of like balancing all of it. And it takes, trial and error
Of
and,
course.
and evolution. Like you said, you have to evolve and you got to grow and all that stuff. But it can take a toll. And I'm sure you went through your ups and downs in your relationship. I don't know how long you've been married and all that, but I'm sure it wasn't easy for her at the beginning because she wants all your time. I know how us women are. We're like, we want your time. And you're like, well, but I got to do this and that. And we're sitting there like, yeah, but what about us? So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did you balance that? How did you guys figure that out? And how did you kind of get, maybe a schedule or something implemented where it works for both of you and you both are happy?
We had a very, very, very real talk in the beginning where when I was getting ready to date my wife, she said,
Uh-huh.
the only requirement I have is you never try to make me be an entrepreneur because I don't want to be.
Uh,
And I said, I don't want you to be one. I don't want anybody that doesn't want to be an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur. And I
right.
said, the only requirement I have is you can never try to take away the podcast because if you take away the podcast, I'll have to leave. This is my thing.
Uh,
This is what I'm doing. I've left everything to do this. This is my thing. I will not leave this. I love this. That was the initial conversation. And then from there, I tried to paint a picture of what I expected my life to look like. I said,
right.
what is an acceptable amount of travel? How many weeks out of the month are you okay with me being away?
Uh-huh.
And she said, I could probably do like a week. If you were only home for 3 weeks out of a month continuously, I feel like I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
COVID happened and now I travel way less. So it actually it's not really an issue anymore because you can do everything virtually.
Exactly.
But in the beginning, it was very much, I promise it will get better. That's kind of what my wife has the most trust in me to like a
Beautiful.
reckless degree, which I am super grateful and super privileged to have that. But a lot of it was, I promise it will get better. I know right now is not super sustainable, but we're in X season. We're in the
Right.
season of growth. We're trying to do this. We're trying to travel more so we can meet more people, whatever it is. It was a lot of that. I was trying to focus as much on progress
Right.
as promises. I mean, I was promising it was going to get better. And my goal is to make sure that the progress of it getting a little bit better. I'm not saying I'm going to have every Wednesday to spend all day with you.
Right.
That's most likely never going to happen. But what I can tell you is I'll have more time on Saturday and you'll always have Sunday. Cool. Then it was, I won't work until 9:30 every night. I'll be done at 7. Then it was, I'll be done at 6. So it was just moving the needle in the right direction at a meaningful enough pace to actually show progress. That was a big piece of it. And I think it's hard because the truth is I'm most likely always going to have to work more than her.
Right.
Because I have a different level of responsibility in the business. I'm the final straw. If things are burning down, I'm the one who has to come in, myself or my business partner. And that's always going to be a responsibility. That responsibility will never go to somebody else. That's not the way it works.
Right.
So I think an honest thing in the beginning was, this is what I signed up for. Do you want to sign up for that too? Because that's kind of what my life is going to look like. It's going to be weird. And it's going to be different than all your friends' trips. But what I can promise you is in 10 or 15 years, it will be worth it. I can guarantee you that. We just got to get to there. So I don't know. It's been an interesting journey. And I don't know if that will be super relatable to anybody, but that has been my experience.
That's beautiful. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. And I kind of have the same thing with my husband. He works from home, so we're constantly home all the time.
Yeah.
And he'll work sometimes till 7:30, and I'll come in. I'll be like, "Hey, you gonna work late tonight? Because I kind of want to hang out for like an hour or two outside and just kind of talk or watch something on YouTube or whatever." And he's like, "Oh yeah, just give me 30 minutes." So we kind of are mindful of each other now more than before because obviously we're a lot healthier mentally. And physically and everything, especially after that accident. Oh my God. But, it just takes, like you said, communication. If you put the expectations up front and say, listen, this is what it is, you okay with it or not, that helps. Yeah. Because it's different when you don't do that, you don't communicate, and then shit goes south. You know what I mean? And then there's chaos, there's fights, there's all kinds of stuff happening. And you're like, wait a second, I'm here working my ass off to create something for us, so we could in 10, 15, 20 years, just actually enjoy life and maybe retire or travel more or whatever, So it's a little sacrifice. So for what is going to come out in 15, 20 years. So yeah,
100%.
that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
we
I like
check
that.
in at the beginning of the week. Like, what does your week look like? You know,
Okay.
when can Pops, or my father-in-law, when can he come over for dinner? So now it's more on that. It's the understanding of my schedule kind of is what it is. And now it's an anomaly when I work outside of the schedule, where it used to be an anomaly if I was on time. That's kind of pivoted, and now it's way more proactive. You know, this week I have this and this and this, but Pops can come on Thursday. I should be done by 6:30 latest. But it's different. It's different. It's hard because year one, that was not sustainable.
Yeah.
We would have gone out of business, right? Year two,
yeah.
that wasn't sustainable. Year three, that probably wasn't sustainable. That's the hard thing about conversations like this, is it really depends on where someone is. It always depends on where you are, as much as it depends on where I am. And it's hard to decipher that at times.
Yeah, it's the balance, man. You just got to have that balance and that communication for sure. So I wanted to ask you, what does the term heart-driven but no BS approach meant to you? I'm curious about that.
We gave a speech one time, and somebody messaged me after, and they said that. They said, the thing I appreciate about you guys is you're heart-driven but no BS. And I said, what do you mean? What does that mean to you? And they said, you're heart-driven because you can tell that you care. You can tell that everything that you're doing, you're putting yourself into. You're not just checking the box. You really, really, really want to add value. The no BS is you tell it like it is, and you want people to win.
Yeah.
We always say our podcast isn't necessarily made to make you feel good. It's just not, because growth sucks sometimes. Will you have some laughs? Sure. Like that. Yes. I like to make people laugh. We're going to try to do that. But it's also going to have some really, really hard awarenesses and realizations that kind of suck. That's the no BS. It's growth first. You're listening to our podcast because you want to grow, and you want to grow from people who do this because they really genuinely want to see you succeed, and they're not trying to sell you on something that doesn't exist or is misaligned. I genuinely want what's best for the community. Genuinely, to my own detriment at times, I want what's best for the audience.
That's beautiful, man. That's really beautiful, because a lot of people don't really give a shit about other people.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, we're in that kind of, like, right now where things are shifting, and you're seeing a lot of that coming out, and people are just lost, man. But I know that with what you do, I'm sure the people that you have impacted their lives, it's been incredible. And it's just, how many people have you coached so far?
Oh man, I don't even know. I have probably 3,000 or 4,000 hours of coaching.
Wow.
My business partner has probably 6 or 7.
Wow.
So
yeah, because he does more of the on stage kind of coaching and stuff like that.
No,
or
he does more business coaching. Right now he has
more
I think
business coaching.
Yeah, he has like 30 clients right now he's working with one-on-one. And then we've had 15 groups of 10 for group coaching. So it's probably close to 1,000 at this point, I'd have to imagine. We've had the opportunity to work with one-on-one.
I have a question.
Sure.
What has been like the most difficult, maybe, client that you've coached? Maybe someone that just was going through something really crazy, and you're trying to coach them, and they're probably like maybe not seeing it, or what was the toughest client so far?
Probably.
You don't have to mention any names or anything.
No, I won't.
But
it honestly, it's I couldn't give you one, because it's a theme.
Yeah.
It's the people that come in with the wrong expectations.
Okay.
And in the beginning, I didn't have the courage to tell them that they were off. It's the person that comes in and says, want an extremely unrealistic result based on the amount of time, energy, effort, and focus I'm willing to put in. And essentially, if I don't get it, I'm going to blame you. Those are the hardest people to work with, because in the beginning, I didn't have experience, so I didn't really understand I don't know how long it takes to get the results you want.
Right.
Over time, I've had the opportunity to just tell people, like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you think that can happen and that's important to you, I'm not the right coach for you. That's not how I do it. I don't have any I don't have any hacks. I don't have any get rich quick overnight things. That's not how we do this. That's not real. Those are not the fundamentals. So I would say it's more the flavor of client than a specific one. It's usually people that think that they are entitled to success. And it's just like, yeah, I just have to do a couple things and then I'll get the best results I've ever had. Yeah, you can do a couple things. You got to do them long enough if you want to get meaningful results. And luckily, the more clients we've had the privilege to work with, the less we've had those clients. Because
that's beautiful.
Yeah, we don't attract clients like that because of our community. All of our clients come through the community. And now at least I have the courage and the understanding to say, look, the first question I ask when I start working with someone is on a scale of 0 to 10, how much time, energy, effort, and focus are you willing to put in to accomplish the goals that you have determined you desire? That answer tells me everything I need to know, and then at least I can lead effectively based on that. So luckily, it's in a different place now.
Good.
Yes.
So what has been like the biggest lesson you've learned from interviewing other leaders on your show, like people that, you know, I know you interview Tony Robbins' son, and that to me it's kind of cool because I love Uncle Tony. Like he's been such a great mentor. So, you know, what have you, I guess, learned from?
Yeah. In the beginning, I used to think, so I remember one of the first ever guest episodes we had. I remember getting off the mic and having a conversation with my business partner and saying, we're never going to hear a story like that again. My goodness, what a story. And then the next week, it was the same thing. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that person got through all of the stuff that they were presented with through life. We're never going to hear a story like that again. And then every story was kind of like that. Everybody's story was this amazing journey of overcoming something and going through this adversity and then becoming the type of person that was capable of getting through the adversity and then helping people avoid the adversity that they had already gone through. Right. That's the lesson for me, is your adversity can be your advantage if you know how to make it your advantage. Do I know how? No, I haven't figured that out yet. But that was a common thing from our guests, is they all had adversity. Every single one of them, many of which were far worse than any adversity I've ever dealt with.
Right.
But they were somehow able to detach from it, to not let it define them, and for them to climb to places where most people never would have bet that they could get to. That was a common theme for me that eventually became comical, just in the mindset of, we're never going to hear a story like that again until next week. Yep, no, this person also has an amazing story of overcoming some level of adversity. Yeah. So that's a really big one. And then the other one for me is, from day to day, progress is invisible. And from year to year, progress is impossible to miss. I did 4 or 5 episodes yesterday. I'm no better now than I was yesterday. None. You couldn't measure it and say, well, you're 1% better. I'm not. But if you go back and
measure that,
you can't, right? I guess it's by feeling. I feel better, maybe. But if you go back and watch the first episode, you would notice a drastic change.
Yeah.
I'm convinced most of my failures, quote unquote, or my lack of successes in life earlier is because I just didn't do something for long enough. I probably was getting better at it. I just didn't do it for long enough to actually see. I went to the gym today. I went to the gym yesterday. I'm no more in shape today than I was yesterday. I had pizza last night, so I might actually be in less good shape than I was yesterday. So it's really hard to measure progress in such a short time span. And I think just the podcast, 7 years is a long time to be doing something that has timestamps. Episode 1, 2, 3. So I can look back and see.
You're what, in episode 1700 now or something like that? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure either. 1825, I think, or something.
That's awesome, bro.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I just hit my number 15. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Most people don't make it there. That's the unfortunate thing, is most people, they quit between 7 and 21. They're like, this isn't working. Of course it's not working. You've done it 15 times. Yeah, no, of course it's not working. You've been married for 15 days and you're wondering why you don't have your dream ideal relationship. You've been working at the company for 15 days. Of course you haven't got a promotion yet.
Yeah.
You've gone to the gym
That
15
is so
times.
true, man. That is so true.
It's
Because even in relationship, like before I met my husband, I'll be honest, he's my first long-term relationship,
mm-mm.
7 years. Before it was maybe a year, 2 years, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore, you know. And he's been my longest one and my teacher. I've learned so much from this relationship, and I've
Yeah.
grown so much. But it's funny because when we first met, he said, "Do you have a growth mentality?" And I said, yeah, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm here trying to like Google what does growth mentality mean? Like, like in my mind, I couldn't really picture it. And then every time he would say, okay, we got to keep growing. We got to do this. We got to do that. And I'm here like, okay, okay. Even if I felt uncomfortable, even if I didn't know what it meant, I still did it because I knew that somehow I was going to grow into something, this,
Yeah.
this relationship was going to grow into something amazing. I was super rocky, man. This has been super rocky and so many lessons and so many things. But, 7 years later, we're like, oh my God, we literally are doing it, because we split for a little bit, a few months, and I thought that was it. And then I go chasing his ass across the country. It's like when you're listening to your spirit guy saying, that's your twin flame. You better go and
better
get
get out
him
there.
back.
Yeah. You better get in the car. You better hit the road.
You better get in the car in the road. I packed up my bags.
Okay.
I moved to New Mexico. He was in Colorado. And then, we kind of started talking. And then by November of 2019, I said, either we do this or I'm out, man. And then we did it. And here we are, 7 years, man.
My goodness.
It's just, it's good. It's good.
When you know, you know.
When you know,
That's what
man.
they say.
And that goes with the podcast too. It's like I look back now and I'm like, man, episode 15, and I'm looking at all like the different things from when I started till now. And it doesn't seem like a long time. I mean, I started in March, but I look back and I'm like, shit, this is awesome. I love this. I love that I'm growing, and I could see a little more of my growth in the podcast and how, I communicate and the things that I'm learning. And, I still have so much more, that.
Of course.
So much more to learn and grow and everything. And it's funny because I have a podcast on Thursday, and it's going to be a challenging one and an amazing one. And it's a gentleman. He's a doctor and he has ALS. He's, he already cannot communicate, not even with his eyes. And he's got a lady, Kimberly, that is going to be assisting him in the podcast. And I'm like, how do I do this? How do I talk to someone that can't communicate? And I'm trying to figure all that out in my head, and I'm getting stressed out. And then I say, you know what? No, just go with it. You'll be guided, you'll be okay. Because it's nerve-wracking, it's emotional.
Yep.
Because he's got such an amazing story. I just got done reading his book, and he's such a beautiful human being, someone that just got hit with something like this, and he's overcome so many challenges and found his true spirituality, his true freedom within all this. And I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to keep it together because I'm a crybaby. So I don't know if you have any recommendations for that one.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be crying, man.
My recommendation would be to cry then.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation. You're you.
Have you ever had anyone like that? Like anyone that's struggling with a disease that's so limited like that?
Not as a guest, but I have been on many podcasts as a guest. I was on a show maybe like 6 months ago where the host, I believe, had ALS, and there was a kind of like a translator communicator there, and I had the same thing. I was terrified. I was like, what? The last thing I want to do is go show up and not know how to do it. Right? I don't want it to seem like I didn't care enough to do the research to figure out how this was actually going to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm feeling. Yeah.
Just research. Yeah, research to build certainty.
Okay.
That's what I did. I listened to the podcast. I looked at other podcast episodes that they were a part of. That helped bring certainty for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually looking at some of his, because the lady that's going to be on the show, she actually did a documentary with him, and that's how they kind of got connected, and she stayed in his life, and she's a huge part of his life now in the family.
Yeah.
And I started, looking at the documentary, and it's called Unfixed. That's her documentary. And, I kind of looked through it and did research, and the more I would look into it, the more I just got so emotional, and I would cry, and I'm just like, you know what? I just want to do a good job, man. I want to be able to put his message out there, his story, because it's so fascinating, so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know?
You're gonna.
It's very important to me to
Well,
make sure that
you care, and I think that when you care and that shows through, that's what people are going to remember anyway.
oh,
So I would, on our 1,000th episode, we bawled our eyes out. I don't
really,
even, yeah, it was probably the least valuable episode ever, but also my favorite episode because it was so real. So
wow.
I could never tell someone not to cry on a podcast episode because I've done it more than most, probably.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard, especially when you know that he's at the end. This is very couple of more months maybe, and that's it. Because he said it like the moment that I cannot communicate anymore, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And that is so hard because you're like, shit.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy. I mean, I've had to learn to not fix anything because I'm such a fixer and such a protector, and I always want people to find a way, And then when you get to understand, no, he's okay with this, this is his journey, and then you kind of understand all of it, and then you come to peace with it, and that's the whole book. Just got me to that point of I'm at peace with, everything that he's gone through and where he's at, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not here to fix anything. I'm just here to hear him, share his story and just, go with that.
Yeah. What when you're feeling self-doubt, what do you feel like you need to hear? Like what could actually help if somebody said it to you? Because even I just minimize it by saying you're gonna do great. Like, no, that's dumb, Kevin. That doesn't help. That does not help the feelings.
My husband tells me, he's like, you got this. You're fearless goddess, man. You got this. Look at everything you've overcome. Like, where were you even 6 months ago? Where were you a year ago? A little over a year ago, I could have been dead. I was really sick.
Yeah.
So he's like, just look at that and look at where you're at now and look at how you're going to be impacting already the world. I mean, you're already impacting the world. Don't think just because you've had 10 episodes or 15 episodes that you're not impacting the world. I mean, you have your guests telling you how amazing you are and how they love to speak with you because you just make it so easy. You make them feel comfortable and all this. And, he just kind of like brings it back to me like, hey, you got this shit,
Nice.
You're good.
Okay.
And then I'm like, okay. And then I go into meditation and I connect and I'm like, I'm good.
I dig it.
Because I'm honest, man, I was nervous. I got on the podcast with you and my hand was shaking. I'm like shaking. I'm like, why am I shaking? Like, this is good. Like, I'm just having a conversation, man.
Yeah, I think we work it up in our heads,
Yeah, that is true.
We
that
work
is
it
so
up in
true.
our heads. And I think we're all guilty of that in our own thing. My best friend last week or a couple weeks ago asked me to be his best man for his wedding next year. I'm already nervous about giving the speech. I'm already thinking about it. Like, do I go in this direction?
Shit.
It's a year away and I am a professional speaker. Why am I freaking out about this? Because it's deeply meaningful. The things closest to our heart are usually the hardest things to do, right? So whatever you need to hear to feel good, I'm sending you that. I won't say anything more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got it. So talk to me about your partnership with Alan and how that has evolved over the years, because I know you guys are doing amazing stuff, man. And it's hard sometimes to keep a partnership that as strong as I could see from here. So talk to me a little bit about you and Alan, man, because I'm really intrigued about that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's probably better than most people think, I guess.
Okay.
We're better behind the scenes than anybody could probably imagine. It's weird. So we went to middle school together, and we were good friends in middle school. I played Spin the Bottle with him and the popular girls in his basement. Yeah. So that's how far back we go. We know some stuff. We know some stuff about each other. Then in high school, he was honor student, getting the President's Award, straight A's, very intelligent. I was a jock. I just wanted to play baseball and party. Yeah. So we didn't get along very well in high school. After high school, I stayed in the town that we lived in. I worked. He went to a really good college. He went to be very successful in corporate America. And then we reconnected when we were in our mid-20s. And essentially, since we reconnected when I was 26, he has been coaching me and he has been a mentor to me. So I have a built-in coach and mentor that I get to talk to every single day. He has studied self-improvement, business, mindset, everything more than I have. So I always get really good lessons from him, which I'm always I'm always super grateful
That's
for.
awesome.
Yeah, it's very unique. We have a very unique relationship where I just trust him. You know, I didn't when him and I partnered up, I just believed a lot of the crazy stuff that he said. Like, yeah, I
Mm,
don't if anybody's going to be successful, it's going to be you. So I feel like if I'm just with you, I'll be more successful than I would be without you.
mhm.
And then as we grew as business partners, I filled in a lot of the gaps that he had, and he's filled in a lot of the gaps that I've had. And I'm more the people person. He's more the numbers and strategy guy, spreadsheet guy behind the scenes.
Wow.
Now we both do both, which his competencies were my weaknesses and vice versa. But going back to a question you asked earlier about core values, that is that is the reason that we are as close and we work as successfully together as we do, is because we have very similar core values, we have very similar core beliefs, and we have very similar core aspirations. Those are
Mhm.
the things that keep us grounded in what we do. He was raised without his dad. His father passed away in a car accident when he was 2. I was raised without my dad. My dad left us.
Wow.
So that's a core wound that we have that we share.
Mm,
And it's really been that. Yeah. It's just the hardest thing about having such a close partnership is the courage required to stay vulnerable. That's
yeah.
the thing that I think we have that a lot of other maybe male business owners don't, is we've
Mhm.
cried behind the scenes with each other. I couldn't tell you how many times. I shared something very vulnerable with him recently about my fear of being left behind. And that always
Wow.
brings us, yeah, it always brings us closer. So a lot of it is just the internal stuff, right? We have a
Mm,
self-improvement company. So we're both very big on self-improvement. And that is
that's
the thing
beautiful.
that, yeah, it's the thing that grounds us, it's the thing that keeps us together. So it's wonderful. I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful. And I'm very curious to see what happens in the future just as we evolve as men,
Mhm.
because 7 years is a long time, but we're planning on doing
Yeah.
this for a lifetime. So we're just a little infant at this point.
That's awesome. That's awesome because it's hard, especially in our society, and especially with men. Us women, we have our struggles, but you men have also your struggles, and sometimes you guys go at it because one, the ambition. You want to be more and this and that, and then if you're not as as ambitious as the other one,
Mm,
the other person, then you tend to start self-doubting yourself, talking not good words to yourself, and all
yeah.
these limited belief thoughts pop up. But
Mm,
you guys, because of the type of podcast you have and the type of things you guys do with the coaching and everything, the self improvement, it's kind of it helps your relationship to
for
be
sure.
able to communicate and kind of, work through all those things, especially when you have your moments, because we're human beings. We all struggle. We all have bad days, right? So it's like knowing that, oh, I could communicate my vulnerability to my friend here. He understands it. He gets it, and that's hard. That's very unique, man.
Mm,
That's extremely unique because myself, I have a handful of friends. Like when I decided to go on this spiritual journey and healing journey, I just kind of left everyone that didn't
yeah.
fit where I wanted to go in my life. So I have very, very few friends, and I want to be able to build something with someone, a partner, something. I'm fascinated by your story, by how you guys have done all this, and I actually look up to you guys, man,
I
because it's not
appreciate it.
easy.
No, no.
7 years of a business, it's not easy.
No, it requires, I think the hardest thing, and I'm going to sound arrogant saying it, but I promise that's not my goal. It requires a
Yeah,
lot of humility. It requires a lot of humility for me to say, no, you know what, right? Alan, I think you're right. Let's just do it your way and let's just see what happens. And it requires a lot of humility for him to come back in 2 years and say, yeah, brother, I was off, man. I'm sorry.
yeah,
A lot of the conversations we've been having we have made a lot of mistakes just as business owners,
mm,
because that's what's going to happen.
exactly.
We optimize for 15 years down the line. I mean, our business
Right.
model is set up for the future. The problem is that hurt us a lot in the short run. So that has
Mm,
been our conversation lately. Is Alan would say, hey, brother, I'm sorry, man. I know I let us off. No worries. How many times have I done that? You're good. You're good. I
yeah.
think the ultimate goal is to live in the truth. And a question that he asks me and I ask him is, do I have full permission to be myself? Do I have full
Mm,
permission to be myself? Yes. Yes. Awesome. That means that you can give me feedback. If you feel like I'm messing up, I want to know where I'm messing up. And we have
good.
had some brutal conversations behind the
Well,
scenes of things that we're messing up that we don't want to admit, we don't want to know. But I think that's one of the reasons why we're so close is we have given each other very, very, very heart-driven but no BS truth. But the other person knows it's coming from a place of, I know this is what you want. It's not about me. This isn't what I want. I know this is what you want based on what you've told me you want. And I think that's rare. So I think that's something we have too.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And that's something that even myself with my husband, we're working on is like what, it's not about ourselves all the time. It's about the other person. Because, if the other person is happy and, they're good and stuff like that, then you're happy too. That makes life easier. The communication gets better. It just makes things so much easier, man. I love this. So I know we're coming at the end of our show because, we got things to do. And I could stay on here forever.
Same, my friend.
Great conversation. But what advice will you give someone like myself that, I'm just starting my own self-improvement journey, my podcast, all these things? Like, what advice do you have for someone that it's starting off, like you did back then?
Do not allow your desires to become your expectations. I know we all want to grow faster and be successful faster. And yes. But it's okay for it to take longer than you think, because the truth of the matter is you might not be ready for the level of success you desire. That is a hard truth that I don't think a lot of people want to admit. I know some people who want, I want $1 million. Cool. I will give you $1 million worth of clients. Good luck servicing the clients that you're about to get. You just don't, You're not there yet. You're not there yet. So focus as much on what you can sustain as what you want to attract. That would be one piece. The other piece is don't ever forget that you are everything that you're doing. So you got to make sure you're always pouring into your own growth and your own self-improvement and your own self-awareness and your own evolution, because your business, your brand, your relationship, your parenting, anything is only going to grow to the level that you've grown. That is something that I think is one of the things that has changed my life more than anything. That's a big thing. And then the last thing would be, it's not about changing yourself into somebody else. It's about taking the strengths of other people that maybe you would benefit from and then figuring out your own way to add those attributes onto you. You don't have to be someone else. You are really good at a lot of stuff. It's ultimately about mastering and really multiplying the strengths and then shoring up the weaknesses. But it doesn't mean you have to go be someone else. For a long time, I tried to be Alan. And I learned a lot. And I now am more strategic and I know math better and all that stuff. But I still need to be me at the core. If you lose the core of who you are, you're going to be out of alignment and you're just not going to know why. So, yeah, add stuff on. But don't ever lose the core of who you are, because I think that's what's going to bring you fulfillment. I think that's what's going to help you recognize alignment. And I think that's going to help you avoid regret. I don't know what's worse, thinking you want to be successful and then not being successful, or thinking you want to be successful, finding success, and then realizing you had to trade in who you wanted to be to get there. I don't know I genuinely don't know which one is worse, but I don't want either of those for you.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want either of those for me either.
Right?
Oh my God, no. Thank you for that message. That was so beautiful. And I'm sure myself and the audience will take something from that. That's beautiful.
I appreciate it.
Now, you're welcome. How do you measure success beyond financial gain? Because, that's a big one. I know we talked about it a little bit, earlier, but talk to me about that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, fulfillment. I was away last weekend. It was my wife's birthday, and the family has a place in Vermont. And we were up in Vermont. It's right on Lake Champlain. It's wonderful. But I couldn't do that every day for the rest of my life. Wake up and work for a couple hours and then fish and then have a couple beers at night. Like, it's really good for a short period of time, but I'm not as fulfilled as I would be if I had my studio up there and I was working. And on the weekends, that's what we did. Fulfillment for me is kind of the measure, because money is going to come and go.
Yeah.
Numbers are going to come and go, right? Some days are going to be worse than others, harder than others. But fulfillment is you making progress towards something that is meaningful to you. And luckily for me, luckily or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, I'm never really going to accomplish the goal. Nobody's going to give me an award that says I'm the best podcaster ever. That's most likely not going to happen. You're not going to get an award that says you guys have helped more people than anybody else. That's not going to happen. So I'm going to be on this mission forever. And in theory, I will also be the most fulfilled version of myself because I always have something to aspire to. So I would say that, fulfillment in life is kind of the success to me. Does it require money? For me, yes. I'm happier when I have more money. I just am. I know it's not going to fix mental health. I've been down that road. Obviously, when my wife and I are good, I'm happier and more fulfilled. And truthfully, when I am in better shape, I am more fulfilled. I just am.
Yeah.
Not because of other people's expectations. It's because I know what I'm capable of. And
Exactly.
when I'm letting myself down, I don't want to let myself off the hook. I want to grow and contribute in that way as well.
Yeah, and take accountability for your own stuff.
Yes,
that's
always.
huge. Cool. So we're at the end of our show, and I like to ask 3 closing questions.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. What legacy do you hope to leave with Next Level University?
Man, that's always a really hard one for me because I'm not really thinking about that. The way I think about it is you and I had an hour and 22 minutes, it would probably be an hour and a half together. My legacy with you is this interaction. Because I don't know if I'm ever going to talk to you again. I'm sure I'm going to talk to you, but but oftentimes I don't, right? And this is probably the first time your audience has ever heard of me, and it might be the last time they ever listen to anything I ever say. My legacy is the time that you and I have together. That's it. That's how I think about it. That's how I operate. I don't know who's going to remember me in 50 years. I have no idea. I just know that when I have a minute with someone, if I have an hour with someone, if I have a day with someone, it's my chance to leave some level of legacy with them. So that is my ultimate focus with legacy.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I appreciate it.
I love that. I love that. Now, what's one piece of advice you give to your younger self?
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I know somehow, in some weird, strange way, you imagine the fact that your dad left because of you. You had nothing to do with that. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Your family doesn't have a lot of money. It's not your fault. That, I think, would have freed me up from so many of the limiting beliefs I still have. Would I have internalized it and used it? I don't know. But that's probably the advice I would give younger Kev.
Well, beautiful. I love it. So as we wrap up today's episode of the Dear Souls podcast, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guest, Kelvin. And your insights and experiences has definitely inspired me, and I'm sure they're going to inspire the guests that are listening to the show. Now, if you found this valuable and our conversation valuable, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our podcast with your friends. Your support helps us to continue bringing inspiring guests to the show, and together we can inspire more souls on this beautiful journey of healing and growth. Stay connected with us for more transformative stories and insights. And until next time, keep shining your light.